Ladies and gentlemen, this is your tactician, Mr. G Coalition, brother number 17, back in the cut, still fresh and clean, ready to discuss some pro wrestling. And it's been a couple weeks now since WrestleMania 39, specifically the decision heard around the world at the end of WrestleMania Sunday. And if we're going to be completely honest with ourselves, here's my freaking take on this. WWE just put itself in a bit of a creative tailspin with that one decision, that being the way that they capped off the last show before revealing the Endeavor sale. That's another fucking significant part of it that a lot of people aren't really figuring out yet. This is WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year, and right after WrestleMania, is in the very morning after WrestleMania, they announced that they sold officially to Endeavor, the parent company of UFC, to basically merge into a $21 billion conglomerate. And the very last decision, and also, as a result of that merger, Vince McMahon's play to return to power in public has officially been completed. And the last thing that we're going to see is a WrestleMania that was full of really a tale of two WrestleManias, if I'm really going to be honest about it. WrestleMania Night 1 was absolutely perfect, or at least damn near perfect as it could possibly be considering the stakes and the era at the time. And basically, it was the night that proved that WWE, when on point, is the best wrestling company in the world. Then Night 2 happened, and I saw more and more decisions that frankly did not go correctly as far as what would have actually been something to freshen things up moving forward, to keep the show actually rolling with higher momentum. Bianca Belair defeats Asuka. Her first big pay-per-view as the Murder Clown character is an L, talking about Asuka, which completely murdered the momentum that she was supposed to have with this newfound gimmick. So now, where's the hope for Asuka's character? Clearly, the woman herself doesn't have much, considering she went off on Twitter talking about the women's division being boring and needing to create chaos. Saying she may as well go back to Japan, but she knows a lot of the fans will miss her. Clearly, the wrong decision was made to keep the title on Bianca Belair for basically the sole purpose of feeding her to a returning brand-switching Charlotte Flair, because there's no really other option for anybody that has like mad credibility on the main roster to take on Bianca and take her down. Raquel, we ain't there yet. Plus, we know that she's got a stopgap because she's got to have this run with Liv Morgan for the tag team titles. But we'll get there. Or maybe we won't. I don't think that's going to be a major deal that I want to discuss much yet. So Bianca, she's fresh out of opponents. She's been champion for over a year. The only thing left is for her to be fed to a returning Charlotte. And that's not exactly going to be a good look for a lot of people. Edge and Finn Balor. Finn Balor is supposed to be the leader of the Judgment Day, this group that's supposed to be rising through the ranks. Not even rising through the ranks. That's supposed to be overtaking the position of the top heel faction in WWE. Dominic Mysterio is the heat magnet of the year so far in WWE. Rhea Ripley is proven to be an absolute certified badass as the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Just please stay away from the intergender politics. That's the part that irritates me about what Rhea's doing. Whenever she occasionally gets into that in comments and in the whole the fact that her intergender interference never gets punished, this, that, and the third. That part, of the Rhea gimmick, that part of Rhea Ripley's act, getting old fast. Focus on just being the badass dominator and eradicator of the women's division, and we will be golden. But, okay, Rhea beat Charlotte at WrestleMania Saturday, and Dom got his ass kicked but proved to be a great heel against his father. The booking of the Judgment Day ends up taking a nosedive from the moment Finn Balor loses to Edge at WrestleMania in Hell in a Cell. Yes, Edge is my favorite wrestler of all time, but come on. I'm going to just call a spade on this one. That match, not only that Hell in a Cell match, okay, I get it. They had the stoppage because of Finn bleeding the faucet when that ladder hit his head. But clearly, they didn't really have much in the way of plans besides that. Gangrel fucking advertised on Twitter that he was going to show up in LA. Okay. Not that he was actually going to be on the show, but that he had flown into Los Angeles. Most likely to either hang out backstage or to check out the show. Okay. I understand. Just because he's in LA, it doesn't guarantee he's going to actually appear at WrestleMania. But he should have. Damian Priest was the one member of Judgment Day that didn't have a match at WrestleMania. Where was he to help out Finn? And if you really wanted to throw a curveball into this whole thing, the whole OC surprise that I was talking about, they should have done something with that shit. So this is my bag. Damian Priest should have come out to help Finn Balor. Gangrel should have been contacted by WWE, and they should have had him be a part of the whole Brood Edge thing that Edge did at WrestleMania. He should have been a part of it to help fend off Priest. But then Finn should have had another club in the bag, literally club, with Anderson and Gallows coming out, making it look like they're going to help Edge against Finn, but then turning heel. Because the OC never forgave Edge for jumping AJ Styles last year to start this whole fucking thing. That should have been the story and the twist in the story that ended up happening at WrestleMania. And yeah, okay. Well, if Edge got screwed by the OC, why would the feud end there? Why wouldn't it end there? It's Hell in a fucking Cell. And if you really wanted to make a statement, Edge should have just been like, you know what? What they should have done was they should have beat Edge so bad that of course he's not going to be fucking back. He's a part-timer who just fucking got roughed up bad. That's what should have happened. Or at least some variation of that should have happened. Not just because I'm a fucking... Well, not just because of who I am or I'm not a fan of or whatever the fucking case. Not just because I'm a Bullet Club mark, but because it would have actually been something that would that would be like a shocking twist. You would have had a surprise. Even if it wasn't an actual surprise appearance of... Well, it would have been a surprise appearance because Gangrel's not under contract. But the surprise wouldn't have just been the guy who's not under WWE contract showing up all of a sudden. You would have had that, plus the twist in the story with the club reconnecting with Finn, and what does this mean for the future of Judgment Day? Okay, and you could have run with that. So those two decisions off rip were both mistakes in my opinion. But those were nowhere near the worst mistaken decision of the show. Hell, you know what? What's the other one? Okay, Brock and Omos. That's another one that, in hindsight, now when I was first looking at Brock versus Omos, I had no fucking problem with it whatsoever. It was exactly what I expected it to be. It was going to be a short spectacle with Brock versus the Giant, and Brock was going to kind of get pummeled a little bit for a cup of coffee, a bit shorter cup of coffee than I thought it was going to be, though. And then he was going to get German suplexes, and he was going to hit the F5, and it was going to be a showcase, replayable showcase moment, clip that you could have for years to come with Brock Lesnar if you were going to keep using him. Okay. Awesome. They did what it was supposed to do, but in hindsight's 2020, hindsight's a bitch. In hindsight, they could have done something even greater with that. That could have been, again, the idea that I had posited before the show, the Hurt Business reunion. Could have been done then and there. Let's say after he hits that F5 on Omos, you go ahead and get that replayable clip of Brock F5ing Omos. Okay, great. 1, 2, that referee should have had his ass been pulled out the ring. And it should have been Shelton Benjamin. Now, I'm fantasy booking this shit. I'm fantasy booking how I would have done WrestleMania Night 2 in hindsight and in light of everything that just happened. In light of the way that they did do it and the fact that it's completely flopped. The fact that they took all the good faith that I had in the company's ability to actually do something, especially at the top, which we're going to get to in a minute, and they completely botched that. So, what should have happened with Brock versus Omos, okay, fine, make it a short match, have Brock get Germans and then F5. But before he can even hit the 3 count, that referee should have been pulled out the ring. And the person who pulled it out of the ring should have turned out to be Shelton Benjamin. Now, it's been on the record, it's been said a few times that Shelton Benjamin has a good history with Brock Lesnar. And we already know about him and MVP, the Hurt Business and all that shit. So right there, Brock could have looked at him, been a little bit shocked in the moment, but then real quick realize something screwy is going on here, get pissed off, go outside the ring and chase Shelton around. Then freaking Cedric Alexander should have come out. And he should have tried to do something, but he gets his ass beat. But that would leave a distraction for Bobby Lashley, who, let's remember, the last time he and Brock met one-on-one, Brock got his ass disqualified instead of actually beating Lashley clean up. So Lashley won the match, but obviously he would have something to do. He would have something to say about the fact that Brock went dirty on him. So Lashley, here's the idea. What if Lashley spears Brock and then gets him in a hurt lock, which feeds him to Omos's choke bomb, and then Benjamin and MVP, as Lashley leaves the ring, Benjamin and MVP wake up the ref, get him back in the ring, and he does the count. 1, 2, 3, Omos beats Brock Lesnar with the help of the reunited Hurt Business. Now imagine if that was the way that WrestleMania started. And then you had Asuka beating Bianca Belair, new Raw Women's Champion. The murder clown becomes in full swing, and she gets to actually bring chaos to the WWE Women's Division. And then you fire that off with Gangrel and Brood Edge getting outnumbered by Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and the fucking OC Good Brothers. And now you're wondering, oh my God, is the club with Judgment Day? What does AJ Styles think about this? And there you have a story for when AJ comes back. And really, you could do one way or the other. You could either have him be the lone guy who rebels against all his friends gone amok, or he could be, well, you know what? Fuck it. I'm in on this shit too, and have him turn heel. You could easily do it either way. But point is, you should have set that thread. You should have set that thread. You should have set the Hurt Business thread. You should have set the Murder Clown Women's Champion thread. And let's face it, Asuka is a character who could take on either faces or heels just like that. So that would have automatically been a fresher piece of the puzzle right there. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, yeah, of course they're going to win that match. But here's what I would have done with that. I would have had both Natalya and Sonya Deville flip on their partners and actually help Ronda and Shayna. Make it basically a 4 as basically a 4-woman unit being created from that. And Ronda and Shayna win the match, and they establish basically a 4-girl faction, of variation on the theme of the 4 horsewomen. Now, I don't know if they should actually be called the 4 horsewomen, because obviously the actual 4 horsewomen of the Octagon that were with Ronda and Shayna was Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir. Marina's in AEW. I don't know where Jessamyn is. But they could have done some interesting thing right there, because Natalya, she was connected to both Ronda and Shayna before she basically turned on Ronda, and then Shayna turned on her. Could have easily done a thing where like she hashed out her differences with both of them, and you turn her into basically their fall girl, the one who needs to take pins when they need to have rivals built up. Then, meanwhile, Sonya, because she used to do MMA her damn self, can easily, and we know how good she can talk on the microphone, let her be the manager / mouthpiece / strategist for these fighting badasses in a very similar way. Basically a female Hurt Business. You could do. Almost. So there. If I had the books for WrestleMania Night 2, I would have reunited the Hurt Business. I would have done a variation of the 4 ladies of the 4 fighting ladies that would have been kind of a female Hurt Business, with Ronda and Shayna winning because of Natty and Sonya flipping on their teams. I would have had Asuka beat Bianca for the women's title. Would have had mad interference in that Hell in a Cell match, including Damian Priest, Gangrel, and the OC. And Finn would have won that match, because we want Judgment Day looking strong at the end of WrestleMania. I think there was one, oddly enough, I think the only match that I probably would have kept exactly the same, I don't even remember exactly what that match was, from night 2. And that takes us to the main event. That main event with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. I'm going to go ahead and say it. The wrong call was made to keep the title on Roman Reigns. Actually, let's not even just stay there. Keeping the title on Roman Reigns, okay, that's one thing. Okay, we're going to get towards 1,000 days as champion coming up May 27th, and they have a pay-per-view now for that. Their next Saudi Arabia show is actually going to be on day 1,000. Okay, great. So there's that excuse for why Roman needed to keep the title. But here's the problem. You keep the title on Roman for 1,000 days. You have only 95 more days until all of a sudden it's 3 years. And after 3 years, I don't know if Summer's... And you know what? No. It's freaking May 27th, so 95 days will be either late August, early September, at that point where he would hit 3 years with the title. So SummerSlam, now that they've decided to start doing those in July, SummerSlam is well in between 1,000 days and 3 years. So obviously Roman is not going to lose the title at SummerSlam now. What's he going to lose at a Survivor Series? That's most likely going to be a team event. So no, that's not going to happen. The earliest date that I could that we can reasonably expect Roman Reigns to lose the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship is at the Royal Rumble, and the next one after that is next year's WrestleMania. He's keeping that title for at least another year, and that's assuming that somebody gets built up, that gets hot enough after they transferred Sammy's heat to the different moment with the Usos and Kevin Owens, which was the right decision there. And the reason that was the right decision is because I assume that the moment that was going to come for Cody Rhodes with his red hot momentum was going to be defeating Roman Reigns and striking when the iron was hot. But unfortunately, they completely flopped on that. And not just by having Roman win the match, but by doing it in the very same bog standard way that damn near every other Roman Reigns opponent has been beat for at least the last couple of years. Uso interference. The Usos, the tag team, and this is the part of it that really, really gets in my brain here. You had Cody with the hottest momentum that anybody has had since John Cena, as far as being a babyface that the WWE audience actually got behind with numbers and money. This dude was selling out live gate records like fucking crazy ever since he came back and won the Royal Rumble. The WWE audience was all in, giving like the vast majority, everybody except for the people who insisted that Sami Zayn had to be given the gold literally a month before Mania. Everybody else was all on board with what they were doing, with the entire Bloodline storyline, with every single person involved. Sami, Kevin, Cody, Roman, the Usos, Solo, Heyman, everybody. Because they figured that this was the time. This was the time that WWE was going to pull the trigger on the Bloodline transitioning from no longer being the dominant force on the show and basically ironing out basically going through the rebuild that was going to be a dissolution that was going to set the stage for everybody's characters going forward. This is what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to actually pull the trigger at that point in time. You had all the momentum, all of the heat was behind this guy. This was the time. And it wasn't just because it's in his hometown. Drew McIntyre got that kind of over because Clash of the Castle was in his hometown. That was the reason he had the whole crowd behind him in that manner. This was not a hometown situation. Hell, Sami Zayn, Montreal, the Elimination Chamber, that's his hometown. Cody got that kind of fire behind him to beat Roman, and Sami and Kevin got that fire behind them to beat the Usos on night one. This is not at WrestleMania. Los Angeles is not in any of their hometowns. So that was the night that you pulled the trigger on all those victories. That was the night that you pulled the trigger. Night one, main event, was the night you pulled the trigger on Sami and Kevin beating the Usos. They actually did that. They did that correctly. Night two was the night you pulled the trigger on showing the cracks in the bloodline to where the interference was not going to be rock solid in Roman's favor. And that would enable Cody to actually get a fair match against Roman and to therefore beat Roman for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. And the very next night on Raw, you were supposed to see the sign. You were supposed to get the visual of Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Cody Rhodes with all the gold that the Bloodline used to hold now in their hands. Celebrating, being victorious, and then pledging that they were going to actually do right by all of the titles that they were holding. Basically teasing that, okay, these are the guys that actually care about the company, so maybe maybe after a while of establishing that they are the champions, they're going to go ahead and do the right thing by the titles and split them so both brands can have champions. And they're talking about both the tag team titles and the Undisputed Universal WWE title. And you could have easily, with that foundation of these guys being where they are, the bloodline still recovering, and the bloodline basically now put in a situation where they got to scramble to take back their dominance, or else their fucking cracks in the foundation of the family is going to explode and they're going to end up breaking up. That itself is a brand new element to the story. You got the Hurt Business literally just reunited off the back of beating up Brock Lesnar. You got the Judgment Day and the OC. I was almost going to say the name of the actual original name of the fucking group, but I'm going to hold back on that for now. Have just gotten stronger off the back of beating up Edge at Hell in a Cell. That whole situation, aside from the fact that, okay, I'm basically saying we could have created a faction war, but you got a whole bunch of different, out of the wake of that faction war, you got a bunch of different contenders right then and there for freaking, you got a bunch of contenders right then and there for all three of them, for Sami and Kevin's tag titles and for Cody's world title. Speaking of contenders, you have even more contenders when you focus on the fact that Brock Lesnar can now challenge back. He just got his ass kicked by the Hurt Business, but he's now free to challenge again for the world title now that Cody Rhodes is there. That would have been a good enough reason. It would have made sense for what he actually did to Cody the very next night on Raw, basically brutalizing him and getting a match out of him. Could have easily done that. Either that, you could have held it off until Cody, Sami, and Kevin beat Roman and the Usos, or Solo and the Usos, or some combination of the fucking bloodline at Backlash. And then you had Brock show up, and then he and then he goes after Cody and sets up a big time match for I don't know what show, but it's gonna be a pay-per-view. Like, hell, you know what? The freaking Saudi show. That was where you could have done it. But hey, who am I? Who am I? I'm just a fan. I'm just a fan who comments on fucking YouTube. So I don't know anything, right? No, the Paul Heymans of the world are the ones who know everything. Well, okay, yeah. You know the inner workings of the business. I don't. Great. Bully Ray, you've been in the locker room. You know the inner workings of the business. I don't. Great. Booker T, you know the inner workings of the business. I don't. That's fine. But you know what I know that you don't know? What it's like to look in on the outside and be a fan of a good story. And see what happens when a story conflict extends way past its sell-by date and goes from being great to suddenly being an albatross around the entire that basically holds back the entire product. That's what happened essentially to the NWO. They didn't know how to follow up on the Wolfpack remerger in 1999 after the Finger Poke of Doom. They didn't know how to follow up on that shit, so the NWO quietly petered out with no proper resolution, and the product suffered as a result. This is they're literally setting up for the bloodline, everything around the bloodline, which was red hot, and you were anticipating that shit was going to go down, shit's going to happen here and there. Now with this one decision, that Roman Reigns gets to keep the championship, not just past this year's WrestleMania, but all the way up to basically another year as champion, as super part-time champion who's not showing up and not building stories. And here's the fucked up part. The Bloodline's interference was rock solid. Was as rock solid, worked without a cinch, without a hitch, the way that it always does. Solo Sikoa got to run in, got to attack Cody Rhodes like basically 5 freaking times before getting ejected. Then the Usos come in while the referee's down after a ref bump, and they basically go out of their way to beat up Cody. Without any hesitation, without any issue whatsoever, the Usos jump Cody Rhodes to try to help Roman Reigns get the pin. So Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have to fight them off, and then they attack Roman, and that leads to Cody getting a cover and Roman kicking out. But the point is, the Usos did not flinch to help Roman Reigns and had to be fought off. And meanwhile, and then Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa, Solo was just ejected, but Heyman gets on the apron, distracts the referee, and Solo shows back up and hits a Samoan spike right when Cody is about to hit his third crossroads, and that enables Roman to instead hit the spear and cover Cody for the win. You wouldn't be able to tell that there was any type of drama within the bloodline. Everything leading up to Sunday was, okay, the bloodline is just about ready to freaking implode. If the momentum stays as hot as it is, the bloodline's going to implode right here. Instead, what they did on Sunday, you wouldn't be able to tell that the bloodline was going to implode anytime soon by what happened on Sunday. That would happen WrestleMania Sunday. If you saw that, if that match was the only thing you saw in all of 2023 involving these guys, you wouldn't be able to tell that there was any type of problems between them in story. You wouldn't be able to tell. All three of Rikishi's sons perfectly employed to help Roman Reigns. And Cody goes down just like all the rest. All the drama that had been built up with the bloodline, all the momentum that had been built up with their enemies, and particularly Cody, the whole idea that Sami and Kevin beating the Usos for the tag titles was supposed to be the moment that the bloodline would come crumbling down from, you freaking slowed that shit to an absolute crawl. And if that powder keg of a situation ends up with a dud for a bomb, there's no reason for anybody to think that Roman Reigns has any logical chance of ever losing that fucking championship. If he really wants to, he could set himself up to never drop the title and to basically retire as the champion in whatever 2-3 years time, whenever he's got enough Hollywood opportunities come his way and he gets sick and tired of wrestling because he sees like how much more money he can make outside if Hollywood ever comes calling to him. If that ever happens, Roman Reigns has set himself up to where he can literally hold the title until that happens and then retire and vacate it and never have to put anybody over. That's literally what the motherfucker's done. There's no reason for me to think that he's ever going to drop the title. Or at least not before next Mania. There's no reason to think he's dropping the title within a year. There's no reason to think the Bloodline's breakup is going to happen anytime within the next 6 months. It is going to be playing at this friction that basically means nothing, and now it's empty drama because now it's like you just invalidated literally everything that you ever did with these guys that was basically the story of the decade if you want to talk about the 2020s. This was the storyline of the decade, but they torpedoed all of the depth and all of the meaning in it by just immediately by the moment that should have exploded the story forward. Instead, it's just another paint by numbers Roman Reigns wins via Sons of Rikishi interference. So nothing means anything. It's basically where I'm at. Not a goddamn thing means anything. So now this great story that they were telling, now all of a sudden it's empty drama. Now you have Sami Zayn continuing to insist that the bloodline is crumbling, but I'm seeing Jey Uso getting perp sweated by Solo's face, but I'm not seeing any signs that they're actually about to dissolve anytime soon. I mean, you just shut that shit down immediately by having the Usos keep the title with Roman. Now, okay, yeah, you can say that, like, the stage was set for the bloodline to still break up down the line, but how far down the line? They can literally do whatever the fuck they want now. They can literally extend this whole thing for like 3 fucking years to where it means absolutely nothing. Me knowing that means it does mean absolutely nothing. That's the problem. That's the problem. And then right after this is when they announce, right after WrestleMania Sunday, this is when they announce the Endeavor sale, with Vince McMahon being the public face of being in charge of WWE. Now, Triple H is still the head of creative. He's still doing the press conferences and all of that stuff. So now we are officially, publicly in the era of Vince McMahon running the company, Triple H running the product. It's officially there. Your executive chairman and your chief content officer. It's a Vince McMahon and Triple H production. They're both to credit when shit is good, and they're both to blame when shit is bad. And as far as the past couple of weeks go, ever since that mess decision on WrestleMania Sunday, they're both to blame for the show no longer having continuity that makes sense and that means a goddamn thing for the most of what they're doing. They're responsible for that shit. It's on them. It's on them. Point blank. It's on both of them. I'm not going to fucking play this game. I'm not, and I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the first person to say this, and I'm not the only one to say this, but you know what? It is what it is. You got to face the facts. Vince McMahon is in charge of the company, and Triple H is officially the head of creative. He's the chief content officer. Triple H runs the product. Vince McMahon runs the company. They're both in charge. This is on both of them. Everything that's good is on both of them, and everything that's bad is on both of them. Now, yes, you can pinpoint certain practices that are obviously this is more up Triple H's bag and this is more up Vince McMahon's bag, but everything you're seeing is being rubber stamped from Vince down to H down to what's happening on the show. So it's just fact upon fact. We got to get past this whole idea of figuring out who to blame for this, that, and the third. Nah. They both get the flowers when shit is good, and they both eat the shade when shit sucks. That needs to be done, that needs to be clarified. Point blank. And until the community gets its shit together and resolves to do that, you keep on playing this. It's everything H is good, everything bad is Vince. They keep on playing this fucking nonsense game. It's shit, you're never going to be able to win. You're never going to win. You're never going to win at that point. But this, honestly, what are we seeing? Look at this whole shit. Everything surrounding No. Going to Raw after Mania. We can talk about how much of a disaster that shit was. But I'm not going to focus on literally every single aspect of it. I'm just going to go on one thing. I'm just going to focus on the main angle. The Cody Rhodes and the whole Cody Rhodes angle. First off, why the fuck is he coming out smiling literally a night after he got screwed by the sons of Rikishi out of the Universal Championship? Why is he coming out smiling? That makes no damn sense. Well, it kind of does in hindsight, but at first it doesn't. You have him challenging Roman Reigns. Hell no. First, you have Triple H making this, talking about the Endeavor sale and basically acting like, oh, WWE, we're going nowhere. The WWE that excited you fans for so long is going nowhere. We're not going anywhere. We're staying right here. And then bring out Roman Reigns. And then Cody Rhodes comes out to interrupt Roman Reigns. He should be in a foul-ass mood, right? Why isn't he? Why is he smiling when he's coming down the ramp? And then he makes this challenge, says he wants another title shot. Paul Heyman basically goes, no, you're never getting another title shot. Then Cody challenges to a tag team match. And then Heyman says, okay, great. You want a tag match? Cool. They better have wrestled at WrestleMania. And they're never getting a title shot either. Out comes Brock Lesnar, who already lost enough title matches to Roman Reigns to where he doesn't get another title shot ever again anyway. And Cody looks happy as a motherfucker that he's going to have Brock Lesnar teaming up with him to take out Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. Then comes the main event. And Brock beats the shit out of Cody before the bell even rings. Completely brutalizes him. Now here's the fucking nonsensical part of it. Obviously, the reason Cody was all smiles was so that it would look more devastating when Brock betrayed him. But here's the logic part of it. Here's the logical part of it. Cody, if you really needed him to be all smiles at the beginning of the show, first off, not immediately. All right, he should come out pissed off when he's interrupting Roman Reigns and challenging him for for a rematch for the title. The moment if you really needed Cody to smile that much in order to make the visual of Brock's betrayal look more devastating, wait until Brock actually comes out to be his partner and then have him smile. All excited, like, oh, it's on now. You about to get it, Roman. Then you can have Brock do what he does, and you can have the same visual of a smiling, excited Cody getting betrayed by Brock Lesnar. And then there's the freaking reasoning behind Brock Lesnar attacking Cody. First off, if Cody had won the title, whether they did it at the Raw after Mania or maybe after Backlash or whatever fucking show they wanted to do it at, Brock attacking Cody would have made sense because, hey, he can challenge for the championship again. Cody's the champion. I'm kicking his ass. Now what would have made instant sense? Instead, people are scrambling and trying to fantasy book the way to find a reason for why Brock did what he did. There's this one cat who said something about, oh, he's doing the Rocky 3 angle. Brock is beating up Cody in order to test Cody and show him tough love. That if Cody can beat Brock, he can beat Reigns. First off, that makes no goddamn sense because the reason Brock can't challenge for the title in the first place, and here's the funny thing, if Brock really cared that much, if Brock was really going to be that pissed about the fact that Cody got screwed against Roman, that he wanted to put him through the ringer, why the fuck didn't Brock come out to stop Solo? So that's number one. And number two, Brock, your ass got beaten, screwed by the bloodline the same way Cody did. How the fuck does proving he can beat you prove a damn thing about whether he can beat them? So that whole thing doesn't make sense, even if you assume that that's the reason, even if you assume that they are going with a Rocky story. But then the very next week, they present an even dumber reason for why Brock Lesnar would have attacked Cody Rhodes. They say that Brock Lesnar was pissed off that he had to come out first to open WrestleMania while Cody got to be in the main event. Again, this doesn't make sense for multiple reasons. Number one, Roman was in that main event. Roman was also the reason you can never be in the main event. Why would you want to fuck up Cody while leaving Roman alone? And then here's the other angle where that shit doesn't make any goddamn sense. Hasn't it already been established, both in and out of kayfabe, that Brock Lesnar is the type of guy who comes in, does his job, and goes home? If he's not going to close the show, he wants to get his shit in, get his shit over and done with as soon as possible, and open the show instead. Hasn't this been established over the past several years? That Brock Lesnar, hell, this was the freaking plot line for him versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I'm trying to remember what year it was. WrestleMania 35, 3 years ago. Well, I believe it was 35. 4 years ago, I should say, in 2019. I believe the number was 35. Yeah, WrestleMania 35. For Brock versus Seth for the Universal title. Paul Heyman specifically said, if Brock can't main event, Brock wants to open and go home immediately. So why under God's hot sun would Brock Lesnar be pissed about going on first when we know that that's what he wants to do? That right there. You're starting to see it. You're starting to realize it. These people don't know what they're doing. They've completely lost the plot. They made the wrong decision on Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, and then they focused so much on the business dealing with Ari Emanuel and all that shit, and figuring out the kinks of what Endeavor wants, while Fox and NBC are going to deal with that, this, that, and the third. They're so busy dealing with the corporate bullshit that off the back of making the wrong decision at WrestleMania, they're more concerned with corporate bullshit because that's where the money is. It's in the corporate. It's in the merger. It's in the deals with the networks and with Saudi Arabia. It has nothing to do with the actual product and giving shit that the fans are going to actually enjoy. Now, they've been doing that just by happenstance because Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman were like masters at work in terms of crafting the beats, the overall beats of the storyline of the bloodline. And all Triple H and Vince McMahon had to do was put the rubber stamp and let the writers figure out the day-to-day details. But now you've freaking taken that ship and steered it way off course because Roman wants to be champion forever. So that shit's gonna... And now you really couldn't be bothered to care about actually fine-tuning shit because you're busy dealing with the corporate end. If you're Vince and Hunter. Understandably so, but the show is now in a position where it's like, what are we even doing anymore? What means anything anymore? And the main event is the prime example, but it's not the only example. Let's look at the Rey Mysterio and Dominic storyline, how that's developed since WrestleMania. The very first SmackDown after WrestleMania, Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar are in a tag team match against Dominic Mysterio and Damian Priest. Okay. No. First off, the entire character of Rey Mysterio through this whole storyline has been about his reluctance and his basically until the past month refusal to fight his son. No matter how punk ass and disrespectful Dominic got towards him, it was because Dominic got at his wife, Dom's own mother. That's the reason that Rey was finally pushed to fight him. Okay, I can understand that. Okay, they fought. Okay, great. So now you're telling me that because Dom broke the dam and got ready to fight him the one time, now they can have rematch after rematch and 80 million times matches against each other, right? Well, here's the problem. Not only does that completely break the continuity of of Rey's supposed to not want to fight his son like that. Not only does that break that continuity, that also completely invalidates the fact that you just had Legado del Fantasma join with Rey Mysterio and him bring them into the revived Latino world order. You just brought back the LWO. Okay, great. Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar. Oh, and by the way, speaking of which, who else was involved in what happened at WrestleMania? Freaking Bad Bunny. Refusing to let Dominic use the chain that was left in Damian Priest's blazer. Bad Bunny interfered. And this is why he got freaking chokeslammed by Priest the night after Mania. Which was probably one of the few bright spots of that show. So you're setting the table for, where's Backlash going to take place? It's in Puerto Rico. Bad Bunny's territory. So you literally just set the table for Rey Mysterio and Bad Bunny versus Rey's son Dom and Bunny's old friend Priest. Why in the blue fuck are you doing this same match on SmackDown with Santos Escobar in place of Bad Bunny? You have Legado. You have the LWO. Cruz and Joaquin are right there. You make Dom and Priest beat the hell out of them while taunting and picking on Rey and Santos to get heat. I can't be the only one thinking of this basic shit. But alas, they've forgotten how to make sense. But yeah, I could probably go on with other storylines. Because you know what? Let me not even talk about storylines. Let me get on a little bit of a track, because there's something else that bugs me in terms of like the coverage or the way that people are talking about these shows on the internet. They're acting like the SmackDown after Mania and then the Raw the week after. They're acting like these shows are so much better. They're so great that these are obvious Triple H. And here's the reason. They're hearing the reports that Vince McMahon is not in the back. And they're seeing that there's several long work rate matches that are set up on these shows. So because of those two things, no Vince McMahon backstage and a bunch of fucking long and a couple of long matches. Now it's like, oh, this was a Triple H production, so we have to praise this and we have to say this is a good show. Yeah, a good show with obvious nonsensical plot threads like Rey Mysterio fighting his son willy-nilly and almost spoiling the fucking match that you're going to have at Backlash by literally having it on SmackDown right after WrestleMania, but with one person replaced. Plot threads like Brock Lesnar's attack on Cody Rhodes having no sensical reason. And the only reasons that anybody can come up with, whether it's like somebody on YouTube or whether it's somebody in WWE, are reasons that are completely contradictory to why the fuck Brock chose to attack Cody the night after Mania and only Cody the night after Mania. If those are really the reasons he's so upset about. Not to mention, if those are the reasons he's so upset about, that flies in the face of continuity in the first place. Why would you have nonsensical shit like that? Why? Then all of a sudden, now we're setting the seeds for Damage Control to break up, which probably should have happened a long time ago at this point. But if I was someone backstage, I would have come up with an even better idea. Instead of actually breaking up Damage Control, why not just convert Bayley into a manager and have her put all the chips behind Io Sky? Because obviously people love Io Sky. She's a beautiful woman. She's mad talented in the ring. And she has some type of presence about her. I'm not going to say that it's like the hottest thing on wheels or even has as much energy or momentum behind her as kind of Asuka would have, or no, did, and would have if she was still on the show. But apparently that tweet that she gave out about causing chaos ended up running afoul of higher ups. So they're like, no, we're going to ice her for the time being. So Io's not Asuka, but she's got something to her. But she just can't speak English very well. And Bayley, she's run all out of steam with how many times she's lost women's championship matches and basically singles matches altogether. She's completely out of steam. She was the one who ate the L when it came to Damage Control in the ring. Okay, great. So your basic idea is we're going to break up Damage Control. Here's my idea. Instead of breaking them up, why not turn Bayley into the manager? Make Io Sky the single star and have Dakota Kai get a different tag team partner. I don't know. It sounds like something that Bayley would have been up for, considering she cares more about building things for the other women and having, for example, she wanted Damage Control to have more women in it. As a matter of fact, this would be the way to do it. And but obviously nobody's thinking. Nobody's thinking back there. So the obvious solution to Io Sky shouldn't be carrying Bayley's bags when she's more successful than Bayley since starting their faction. There obviously the solution is we're going to have Bayley get dumped. And what's that going to do? What's going to happen when Io Sky has nobody to bounce off of and nobody to talk for her? What's going to happen then? She ain't gonna get as far as she should. I'm gonna tell you that much. She ain't gonna get as far as a lot of people think she should. There's plenty of reason to be pessimistic about what's going on in WWE right now. And if I wanted to talk about AEW, which I'm probably gonna do that in a different video, which I don't know when that's gonna be, but frankly, I'm not going to go ahead and say, look, I'm going to say AEW has an opportunity to capitalize, but I'm also going to say that, but at the same time, when the WWE main roster goes bad, all of wrestling fucking takes a hit, which means AEW in the ratings ended up taking a hit, despite the fact that they actually tried to put out a decent show in their own right. They actually went and tried to put out a decent show in their own right with a plot thread that intrigues me personally. But they're still not exactly picking up super high ratings. Why? Because of the wrestling fatigue that came from the bad decision at WrestleMania and then the terrible Raw after. And nobody's really recovered. Freaking NXT's been putting out bangers, but nobody wants to watch now. I'm almost coming up on an hour, and I feel like I'm missing a segment. But I don't know that I actually am, number one. And number two, I don't really feel like going on. I'm already losing my wind here. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of me going on and running my mouth for much, much longer, I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell you guys of a little bit of concept that I actually want to fucking do right now. Now, I know I mentioned, look, Vince McMahon and Triple H, they're both running this shit together, so we can't exactly just put all the blame or all the credit on one guy, right? That doesn't make any damn sense. And I just freaking elaborated on an example of how that makes no damn sense. With the way that people have been reacting to the last two SmackDown and Raw after the Raw after Mania, and basically saying, look, we know Vince isn't back there, we got long matches, so Triple H must have done these shows, so therefore we're going to say they're good. Fucking nonsense. As a matter of fact, yeah, okay. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Look, I see idiosyncrasies in both Vince and Triple H that says, okay, this guy's going to do this sorry thing, or this guy's going to do this sorry thing. I know I see Vince McMahon good ideas. I see Vince McMahon bad ideas. I see Triple H good ideas, and I see Triple H bad ideas. Point blank. And I also see good ideas where the talent carries shit and the guys just pull rubber stamps or get out the way. So here's what I'm going to do. Because not enough people recognize the Triple H bad parts, I'm going to end up creating a series of running a few short angles, basically I'm going to run a series of shorts where I pick apart a certain decision or a certain direction that Triple H has taken with a certain act. And it's not going to be this super high detailed. I'm not going to take an hour. I'm not going to take 30 minutes. Hell, if I know what I'm doing, I don't even take 5 minutes. And basically, the idea of the series is here's the act, here's the premise of what these guys have had going on. So when we're going to pull this with them, instead of doing this thing that Triple H actually did, we're going to do this other thing that actually keeps the continuity of their act keeps the continuity of that act and allows for it to be the freshest momentum. Like, one of the biggest ones as far as that concept in my mind. I'm going to give you an example, and actually I'm going to spoil the first one. I'm going to spoil the first version of this series is going to be Imperium. And obviously I close and it's going to close out with a funny little zinger. And each of these episodes, actually I could do this for Vince McMahon, I could do this for Triple H, I could do this for Tony Khan, I could do this for anybody. I could do this for fucking Gedo in New Japan if I really wanted to. But point is, I might end up doing shits for all four of them. But mainly I'm going to focus on Triple H. So the idea is this you set up is basically this situation with this character or this wrestler. You go in this direction, which is, in my opinion, a creative faux pas. And I'm going to say, don't do this thing that this guy actually did. You do this thing instead, which will actually create more, which is going to be better for that wrestler in terms of continuity, direction, character, whatever have you. And I close it off with a sarcastic little quip about how great the booker who made the mistake is. So for my Triple H series, I'm going to basically call it Triple H is the greatest booker of all time. Obviously, these are sarcastic titles that I'm going to be giving all of these guys if I do all of these guys. But it's going to be a sarcastic title. And it's a sarcastic series title. Triple H is the greatest booker of all time. But meanwhile, I'm dissecting this thing that Triple H did with this character. Instead of doing this, why don't you do this? Don't do this thing that Triple H actually did. Do this other thing that would have worked better. Triple H is the greatest booker of all time. I'm going to have fun with this. And when I talk about Imperium, I think a lot of people can probably get a sense of where I'm going to be going with Imperium. But I want to see if I can try to have fun with that shit. Anyway, that's about it over here. I think I just unloaded enough and as much as I need to unload right now in terms of what's going on with specifically WWE and like certain elements of nonsense stemming from WrestleMania Sunday Night 2 and everything that happened since then. How the continuity is basically broken and doesn't make enough sense to even justify the hype anymore. But now I'm going to do but at the end of it, I'm about to get creative with this sumbitch. And I'm going to straight up say, instead of doing this, do this. You're the best. Except you're not. Talking about whatever booker's mistake I'm criticizing. In the case of Triple H, I'm going to basically go ahead and be Triple H is the greatest booker. Or I might do a different one. I might do Triple H as the savior of wrestling. Most likely I'm not. Most likely I'm just going to go with the greatest booker version. Because people freaking have this idea that Triple H can do absolutely no wrong. That everything he fucking does swims. He walks on water. He's like Jesus Christ or something when it comes to booking wrestling. And the main reason is these people completely forget the history of this guy. They forget how dirty he's done so many people over the years. How dirty he did China when he left her for Stephanie. How he used to be Mr. Am I Going Over, ripping up scripts because he's not ripping up the script and basically telling the writers, I'm going to keep doing this until you write it to where I'm going over, to where I'm winning the match, to where I'm keeping the championship. The fucking bullshit that he did, taking like a half a fucking minute after hitting the pedigree on Booker T at WrestleMania. Which one was it again? I believe it was 19. WrestleMania 19. This guy takes like over a fucking minute to pin Booker T after hitting the pedigree, knowing that Booker, if he tries to kick out and extend the match and make Triple H hit him with another pedigree, which is the thing that would have made fucking sense. But Booker would definitely get deep pushed, if not fired, immediately off the back of that because of his fucking backstage power. Think I didn't see that? Think none of us? You think I forgot that this guy did that? You think I forget that he's that motherfucker? Nah, I didn't forget. He's the guy that let The Rock's contract run out on a clerical error and then created the narrative around part-timers specifically to get at The Rock. Yeah, I've seen enough of Triple H's fucking dirt over the years. I haven't forgotten. This dude's a dirty motherfucker. All right? I haven't forgotten. So everybody who freaking thinks that this guy walks on water because of those years, because NXT Black and Gold used to be so good, well, really, it was only really that good up for like a period of, some people say 2 years. I'm going to go ahead and say maybe 3. Basically from the time of the takeovers, of the earliest takeovers, all the way up to the points where Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, and Adam Cole were hogging up the NXT title and basically saying they don't ever want to go to the main roster, which completely defeated the whole purpose of NXT existing in the first place. Basically turned the shit into a super indie, with the developmental aspect being not even second priority, more like third or fourth priority. The super indie and the get Triple H's image over became the higher priorities rather than developing guys in directions that Vince McMahon can actually use in the future. And that ended up basically the disconnect between NXT and the main roster, and then the fact that NXT tried to compete with AEW and got starched because you're a developmental fucking product. Okay, Hunter, you can say that now in hindsight, but you should have fucking known that in the first place and kept that directive. But who am I, right? Who am I? Look, Triple H, these people think he's the greatest booker of all time. You hear people talk about Hunter, he's the greatest booker of all time. So you know what? That's what I'm going to run with. That's the sarcastic title I'm going to run with. Triple H is the greatest booker of all time, while deconstructing the fucking bullshit involving the way that he does things, that proves that he really doesn't have as much of a grip on things as these people like to think he does. So yeah, Triple H is getting his ass deconstructed. Maybe down the line I'll deconstruct Vince. I'll deconstruct Tony Khan. Actually, you know what? I'll probably deconstruct Tony Khan before Vince, but I'm still willing to deconstruct all of these guys. I'm willing to deconstruct Triple H. I'm willing to deconstruct Tony Khan. I'm willing to deconstruct Vince McMahon. And yes, I'm willing to deconstruct Gedo. But the first person I'm going to deconstruct is going to be Triple H, with my Triple H is the greatest booker of all time series. But yeah, that's all I got. Wait, not done yet. Back in the cut, realizing the three things that I might have forgotten over here. Number one, to kind of clarify the main event, how I feel like that should have gone differently. One, the Usos should have hesitated when they came out to supposedly help Roman. They should have hesitated, and Sami and Kevin should have first talked them off and then fought them off before they ever laid a hand on Cody. None of those guys should have touched either Cody or Roman during the match. They could have done it like that, and maybe Roman saw it out the corner of his eye, or maybe Paul Heyman saw it, and that would be the tip that would be like, okay, we know these guys, they're not really about it no more. And that could be a thing that could be used for stories. Then you have Solo try to do his run-in to interfere, and you could have any one of like 3 or 4 different people. You could either have Riddle coming back because Solo took him out, or you could have Brock Lesnar off of getting screwed by the Hurt Business. He still wants freaking blood. But he can't get the Hurt Business because they left the building. So I figured, okay, the next best thing, let me screw up the Bloodline's attempt to fucking rob the title. You could have him, or you could have, and this is the one I'm probably going to been most ambitious about trying to run with, you could have had Trick and Melo coming from NXT, fresh off Melo winning the NXT Championship, because they've already talked, Cody and Melo have already talked in interviews about how Melo was one of the guys who Cody trained with to get back in shape for the main event, and Cody ended up teaching Melo a lot of things that he hadn't realized before. So you could have easily run with that. And the way I would have done it is either pull the referee out again, or more likely, trip up Roman Reigns before he hits the spear, and then get into a fight with Solo and take him down and out. And that leaves the fight just between Roman and Cody again. And again, Cody is finally able to nail that third crossroads, get the 1, 2, 3, and beat Roman Reigns for the undisputed titles. If you do it like that, you have 4 guys who can now come out and celebrate. If it's going to be... You can have 4 guys who can come out and celebrate the next night on Raw. If it's Riddle, he comes out first and introduces the 3 champions. If it's Brock, they end up bringing him out and thanking him, but then Brock says, "You owe me one." Straight to Cody, he says, "You owe me one. I'm coming for that title." Or it could be Carmelo who joins them in because he is now a fellow champion as well, all 4 introduced by Trick Williams. And you have a little thing where you can actually run with this, where for like about a month or so, Trick and Melo end up doing double duty, both NXT and a short tour of Raw, in order to kind of play their role in this story. And if you do it like that, Melo and Trick go back to NXT. Once they're like back to just doing NXT straight up, they have more credibility with that title. I mean, come on. The ideas write themselves. And by the way, for the Paul Heymans and Bubba Dudleys and Booker T's of the world who want to insist that peak cinema just happened, that this was the greatest decision that could have been made, that Cody Rhodes is going to be a bigger star, this, that, and the third, and he's going to have to go through his adversity and his struggles, and he's going to come out like a shining star whenever they finally decide to give him the title, however many months later down the line. First off, how can you possibly guarantee, A, that Cody's even going to get the title again, or B, that you're going to even stand half a chance at recapturing the steam and the momentum that you literally had coming into WrestleMania, that you let out of the fucking room like a deflated balloon, when I see in the background the fact that Seth Rollins, who can't stand Cody Rhodes, who is close to Triple H, and who is married to the woman who was the top star of the company for a minute in Becky Lynch, along with Roman Reigns, his damn self, are both openly campaigning, both in public and interviews, and no doubt in my mind privately to Triple H and Vince, that they should be the main event of WrestleMania 40 for the titles. You can't guarantee me that with a straight face. These cats are lying through their teeth, they're talking out of both sides of their ass, and they're covering up for the WWE, and it's absolute failure and one of the worst decisions I have ever had the displeasure of seeing as a professional wrestling fan. That's one thing. The other thing, I'm going to be much quicker about it. Yeah, I know, I'm halfway between, I'd like to see it when it comes to the idea of like Judgment Day basically halfway becoming its own version of Bullet Club, specifically with Anderson and Gallows being heaters for Finn. Let me clarify that. They would be heaters. They would be guys that run in and get heat. They would not be required to do anything significant in terms of like winning matches, collecting championships, or anything of that nature. I don't need them for that. That time passed when it comes to those two dudes. The best that they can do is be the guys, is fill in the numbers in like multi-man tags and run interference and shit. And maybe do a little bit when it comes to like adding chemistry and fun and promos. Assuming that they aren't like trying to pop themselves the whole time that they're doing the comedy bit. But point is this: you just make them basically. They make up the numbers and help Finn Balor become more legit, and possibly end up being half the reason that AJ Styles, if you're gonna run with AJ going heel and joining in as well, they would be the ones who convinced him. And by the way, Mia Yim, she would be dropped from the OC. And if I would have my way with this version of the story, Liv Morgan gets inserted back in, and Rhea Ripley gets to have her back at her side again as partners within the Judgment Day. And maybe you could even do it to where if AJ would join them too, maybe Liv turning heel and AJ's return happen in the same go. I'm literally out here thinking through how they could have done this. And the funny thing is, because the Judgment Day would have existed as its own thing before Finn took over, had a whole freaking year, ended up feuding with the OC before bringing them in. Now you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, where WWE kind of, you basically like made your own version of Bullet Club, but it's not the Bullet Club concept. It's its own aesthetic concept entirely. It is separate from Bullet Club, just happens to have the 4 guys who you brought in from there in 2014, 15, 16. And no, I would not want Cody to join them. I would not want Adam Cole to join them if he was still in the company. And I would damn sure not want Kenny Omega or Matt or Nick Jackson to join them if they suddenly sign on. Nah. The only Bullet Club influence that needs to run together in a group in order for it to work is the 4 guys that they brought in the beginning. Finn Balor, AJ Styles, Anderson, and Gallows. Besides that, you do basically what you just did in the first place, and you make the group its own thing that just happens to have those guys at some point. Okay, I don't know if that was shorter than what I intended, but it is what it is. And finally, number 3 is the match that I would have not changed at all from WrestleMania Sunday. I was okay, I forgot that match. Now I remember it. It would be Gunther, the Ring General, in his badass Intercontinental Championship defense against Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, one of the best straight-up fights in WrestleMania history. How in the blue fuck am I forgetting that match when Imperium is going to be my first subject of my series cooking the idea that Triple H is the greatest booker of all time? Alright. That's the last of my pieces. Now we can really say peace out and stay gold.